people in Karachi right now, there's such serious violence between communities here and between religious groups that everyone is kind of hysterical. I've noticed. I've come back after a year, and I feel that people talk in a high-pitched voice. They buy clothes as if there's no tomorrow. And there's just this strange way of coping with a city that is collapsing, where there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear in the city. So this sort of psychological states of individuals in these very volatile spaces are very intriguing.
Fear of what?
Fear of, here there's a fear of, there's a huge class war. So there is, it's the, I mean, the just a generally there's theft and burglary on a daily basis everywhere. So everywhere. So when I drive my car into the house in the neighborhood that I live in, I always have to look back because the more, it's very regular to have a car following you, and they'll just drive into your house, into your garage with you, and just enter your house with you, and they're armed men. So that is a very standard way of burglary in Karachi right now. So in the middle of the evening, somebody will just follow you into your house, and they've just been following your car. Or on a traffic light, somebody will just take out a gun and put it next to your window and ask you for your purse. My home is, right now, I mean, my eternal home is Karachi, and that's my spiritual home for sure. But right now it's Berlin.
How long have you been staying in Berlin?
Just a year. We've been there I was there for the DAD program,
yes,
the Kunstler program, and then that finished in August. So then we've just come away to do our own things, and then now we go back, and we are hoping to stay there. And I mean, it's a bit of an odd, I mean, both my husband and my husband is a graphic novelist, and he's Indian, and so, and I'm an artist, and I'm sort of, both of us are very rooted in being in South Asia. But we are having to consider staying in Germany because of being an Indian and a Pakistani couple, our visa situation is very difficult to negotiate. So it's easier to be in a third country. And
even though
Berlin is interesting. It's got a really nice set of people, but it's also more than a place like London or which I'm more familiar with, or New York. It's quite provincial. I mean, Berlin, in terms of its institutions, it's quite local. So the German imagination about contemporary art is quite Eurocentric. So it's interesting for us to observe that, because the stereotype of Berlin is that it's the best place to be for art making. I think it's the best place to live as an artist and to produce work in terms of finances. But so I don't know. So we are sort of confused about that, but still, I mean, we like the city and we're enjoying being there, so we hope to stay on for a while. For me, really, living in Germany is my first experience of living in Europe, and I think that shapes it a lot. I mean, if I was living in Italy or in France or somewhere, it would be quite different. I think Germany at this time, with the financial crisis and Germany's role in it, I think it's interesting, and also being a South Asian, I think this sort of heavy dose of pragmatism and hard work and sincerity. These are the morals that you encounter, and these are the values that you encounter in the German public talk. Is not necessarily my cup of tea. I'm like I said, when I went to Italy, everything is dysfunctional, but there's something that I could relate to much more. So things don't work, but I'm much more familiar with things not working, and people wanting to live a crazier life than they can manage, than they can afford. So it's not a value judgment, but it's something I'm more familiar with. Whereas Germany is very, very, very. There's a lot of good intentions, very serious intentions. So I think I can't say generally what Europe would be like, but Germany is very particular for sure in terms of living there. But on the other hand, you have we have a lot of universities in Berlin which are attracting the most interesting people. So you have an intellectual climate. You have lots of people coming from all over the world. There are two, the Humboldt University, Freie University. So the academic rigor of a city in Germany is also really enjoyable. So there are aspects of it that you really love. And then when you're there, the things, when we look back at India and Pakistan, you feel the absence. So for instance, in the art community, if we were to take that, the art world in India and Pakistan is extremely market driven for the past 20 years. And that's what the conversation is about. And for the longest time, of course, I'm not very interested in talking about auctions and how much anyone sells for, but there is a celebration. It is a celebration that we are independent and we can sell and we can do things and our collectors can buy our work. And there's a sort of a declaration of independence in that way, that we are free of the West to some extent. Yeah. In India especially, which is fine, which is completely understandable as sort of this sort of liberating feature, but it gets a bit narrow intellectually. And then you get tired of it also. So that's what it's nice to be away from that and to live in your own mind and to have a few conversations now and then with the people. Which make sense and which are inspiring, to see to see interesting exhibitions and just have access to other ways of being. And I think in places like Germany and in Europe, in the art world at least, there are lots of layers of artistic practice. There are the stars who are celebrities, who make a lot of money and all of that. And then there are, multiple other layers and attitudes towards art making. And you can plug yourself into whatever conversation you want. And unfortunately in Pakistan and India, you just hear everyone, when I'm arguing about this, everyone will say, but look at Damien Hirst. I said, yeah, look at Damien Hirst. What about Damien Hirst? So the Damien Hirst model has become such a prevalent model amongst people who are making money from doing art. And lots of money. We're not talking about just surviving, but becoming millionaires. Yeah, and that's what's interesting, that I'm talking to this younger artist here the other day, and I said, but you do realize that Damien Hirst played with that whole idea very consciously, and he made it part of his artistic practice. But it's almost as if where Damien Hirst left off, the whole of China and India took on, went with that. So they took on that model. And there's so many artists. So when artists are buying houses for millions of dollars, that's what's being celebrated. And there's very little language to critique what they're doing. So it's all changing because the market is also changing. So it's an evolutionary thing. Even here it's going to change. I've met lots of interesting people who are also cut off from the market and who are doing projects which are based on grants, or they're raising their own funds and doing public art projects. So there is a growing awareness. But generally there is there's a thrill about being able to sell very high prices, and about a sort of a public relationing, that whole culture of presenting yourself, a PR aspect to being an artistic person, celebrity artist, that's very common. And but I think that it's going to change. It hasn't been that long. On the other hand, a lot of people are becoming artists, many more than before, because the ability to think of a life where they'll earn through their art is more possible now. So it's growing. And while I've been in Karachi, I've been going and meeting students and looking at their work and talking to them. And I still really enjoy what art education does to a young mind. I think there's a lot of potential in art education, because I think it's a very broad-based education. So even sort of light, but it's very hopeful. I think it's very interesting to see.